Shut up and sit down.
Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing this evening? We'll go ahead and get my camera up. Here we go. So 323. This is now episode 8, although technically one of the episodes never got broadcast. But the first episode was technically episode 1 by that count. Anyway, so this is the 7th episode, whatever it is. Anyway, hi. Second episode here at my personal Twitch channel. Just a quick note, 323 does have a Discord. I'm actually using that to run interviews today. If you want to join in, just type !Discord in the chat. Keep in mind that I've already actually planned out who I'm interviewing today for the show, so not necessarily likely to take any more interviews, but if someone pops in on a division and I don't have anyone there yet, yeah, maybe bring you in. To that end, let's jump in. So today on the show, we're going to be looking at tier lists. That part's not new. Let me see if I can fix this alignment real quick. There we go. We're going to be looking at tier lists. That's not new. The what to watch for the coming week. That's not new. Top 5 plays, simulations, playoff projections, and then finally a couple bubble team interviews. We do have D West, yeah. So believe so anyway. Hopefully that one holds up. We'll find out. But from there, today we're gonna start as we usually do with Storm Division, and Storm Division has actually wrapped up its regular season. Storm Division had a single round robin between 8 teams. That takes 7 weeks. Here we are at the end of 7 weeks. Unfortunately, can't think of name. Did drop out, so they did not play their last 2 matches. Velocity gets the forfeit win. Team Alexander getting the 3-1 in the match to watch, or the what to watch for. And that gave Team Alexander the 1 seed, dropping Exodia down to either a 2 or a 3 seed. I'm not actually sure, but I do know it's one of the 2. And VGM getting the 3 over the other Korean team. Also Chili Mountain finding themselves a 3 over region. Quick point of clarification, as there is, of course, the other league going on right now. The league that also has a Chili Mountain team. That is a different Chili Mountain team, just to make sure that that is clear. But with that, last time we left you off with the tier list as such. And you'll notice I don't have any match to watch for this week because their regular season is over. At the end of the season, other Korean team, they're going to have to move down to E since they are eliminated from playoffs. Regen, they showed moments during the season, but really struggled down the stretch. They dropped down to D. Velocity to C. And Exodia, going to be in B tier. And I think each of these teams are really competitive with each other. I do think Team Alexander will be, assuming that all the teams finish the playoffs as their rosters currently state, I do think Team Alexander is the clear favorite. To that end, we do have the playoff bracket. Now, I'm not actually sure, because I'm not familiar with the tiebreaker rules. There's 2 common tiebreaker rule sets that I've seen, just in general in these types of leagues. One would have Exodia as the 2 seed and VGM as the 3. The other would have VGM as the 2 seed and Exodia as the 3. It wouldn't actually matter in terms of where teams are placed in the bracket, and so as a result, if I'm getting the 2-3 backwards, I don't really care. So this is the bracket, and since we have a bracket, we gotta fill this out, right? We gotta fill this out. We can't just leave a bracket and be like, well, there it is. We gotta make predictions. So here's mine. Keep in mind, this is a winner's bracket on top, a loser's bracket on the bottom. So let me turn off my Discord notifications here. Seems that people are having issues connecting to the server. I will try to work that out when the interviews come. Hopefully everything works out. We shall see. In the meantime, in between time, we got brackets. So Here is my prediction for how things are going to go down. I'm going to take, and this is assuming, by the way, that the rosters are as they finish the season. If that doesn't hold up, this changes maybe fairly significantly. But I'm going to take, in the winner's bracket, I'm going to take Team Alexander over Chili Mountain. I'm going to take Exodia over VGM. That sends Chili Mountain and VGM down to loser's bracket, where I think both advance over Velocity and Regen, respectively. This is where I'm getting a bit bold. I'm actually going to call an upset. I'm going to say Chili Mountain over VGM and Exodia. And this is a bit bold. I don't have a lot to back this up, but I just think Chili Mountain had moments where they really challenged these teams, and I think they can get over the hump in both of these games. Although I think both may go to 5 games, both series. That will then set up the final between Team Alexander and Chili Mountain. I am currently picking Team Alexander to take the series and therefore Storm Division. That's my prediction. You don't like it? Well, that's fine. So keep an eye out. It should be a fun playoff to watch. Definitely check it out. There is prize money on the line, so these teams definitely have an incentive to stick around. I think the prize pool is certainly north of 1,000. I think it's, 1,300-ish last I checked? Maybe even higher. Anyway. So now that we're done with Storm Division, let's go ahead and jump to Heroic. So only 4 Heroic matches played so far this week. You got Richard, and Ree getting the domination over Phoenix Rising Ruby. Got Team Riper's domination over Yamate Kudasai, which is an important game for Yamate Kudasai, as we'll see when we get to the bracket later. Brawl is Life 2-0 over Wildheart, and Archon getting the 2-0 victory over Sarah's Crypto Crew. So let's take a look at our our tier list here. I was about to say power rankings, but these are intentionally not power rankings. They are very, very much tier lists. And let's see what, if anything, changes up. Well, here's my change. I'm going to swap the order of Topaz and Ruby, and I'm done. At the moment, none of the results this week were particularly meaningful or stood out enough. Ripers is starting to get into this territory, but it's so hard to predict the Heroic Division. It's very, very competitive right now. And right now, these teams on the D-line are all sitting in a position where only one of them is going to make playoffs. And if I had to guess right now, I would actually say it's Ripers, and that might have me moving them up. In fact, let's go ahead and move them up. But it's fairly competitive. There's a couple of new changes, though, when we get to our simulations. First, Archon becomes the first team to clinch playoffs for the Heroic Division. They're the only team that is clinched. As we can see, Brawl is Life is very, very close, but they're not actually a true 100%. There is a path where they could fail to make playoffs, albeit it is astronomically rare at this point. But unfortunately, Yamate Kudasai is officially eliminated from the playoffs. They were already a rather substantial long shot. And so, unfortunately, we say goodbye to them. But now looking the rest of the way. You gotta think, okay, Archon's in. These 4 teams, I don't suspect anything changes. I think they make it. And I'll even throw in the Phoenix Rising teams, although Ruby is starting to slip a bit. We'll need to make sure to finish strong or just not get upset by one of the lower teams. Ripers and Wildheart starting to climb. Double Paradox really finding themselves trending towards long shot territory, but still in it. Effectively, these 3 teams competing for one playoff spot. But let's take a look at how our playoff projection has changed. So, despite getting the domination victory, because of changing difficulty in the remaining schedule, changing ELO scores, Archon actually moved down to the 2 line this week. Brawl is Life moving up to the 1 in the simulation. I should note that they are extremely close between the two. So it could go really either way at this point. Richard, and Ree moved up to the 3 line, bumping down New Game Plus to the 4 and Sarah's Crypto Crew to the 5. The 2 Phoenix Rising teams switching places, so Topaz moving up to 6, Ruby moving down to 7, and currently Team Ripers is that 8th team in the Heroic Division. So now, move on to A West. In A West, big upset, Fox and his carries, 2-1 over Baby Makers, that on Friday. Minion Miners looking good in a 2-0 victory over Regen Retro. Earlier in the week, though, Baby Makers getting the 2-0 win over Minion Miners. So A West really just turning into a murderer's row here. Take a look at where we left it off last time. And this is where I have to say, Regen Retro, they're currently coming down. Fox and his carries, they're going to stay down here because despite that upset, they're still very far from making playoffs. But the reality is, I don't know what order to put these teams in right now. So I'm going to put them in this order because I think these 4 teams right now, as they're playing, are fairly interchangeable. Baby Makers, because they've played well so far this season, have an advantage in the standings. But when it comes to playoffs, I think these matches really could go either way. Now let's take a look at the simulations. And we're going to see if we can do an interview. There seem to be some people having some difficulties here, but we will give this a shot. Yeah, if this isn't working, everyone who's trying to get in, I'll just move to an NGS lobby, and we will try to do it that way. But let's give this Discord a shot first. So, first and foremost, safe bet teams. Really, the only team that's 99% is Baby Makers, and they're actually favored to take the 1 seed despite their loss this week to Fox and his carries. That loss, or that result, did move Fox and his carries up from long shot to improbable. Now very close with Regen Retro, but both pretty distant on the bubble. Fancy Flightless Foul, they're moving up. Forge the Winning Condition, currently sitting down at 83.21. They actually have the most uncertainty because they have so many games remaining. And in fact, that's a big problem in A West right now, is that there are a massive ton of remaining games in A West. But with that, we are going to see if we can talk to Himibo, who is the player that I spoke to actually on Friday when Minion Miners got their victory over Regen Retro. Let's see if we can bring him in here. Hi, Himibo. Can you hear me? Doesn't look like it is working. So let's try. Everyone who's waiting to join me, drop yourself in NGS Lobby 4, and I will try to drag you down. Oh, and actually Himibo can join because he's got caster permission. So, all right. Himibo, how are you doing? Doing all right. So we're admittedly massaging the definition of bubble team a little bit here. Your team currently a 90% chance of making the playoffs, but A West has been nothing but unpredictable. Hang on, let me check. Can you speak real quick? Ah, yes, hang on. I see the problem. Once I can hear you, but the people out there can't. Now, there we go. All right. Looks like we have. Thank you, Arrow, for helping out with that. We will be speaking to Arrow shortly. So, yeah, I have the Discord channel routing through different things. But anyway, we're massaging the definition of bubble team a bit. But that said, you guys coming off kind of an up and down week, losing to Baby Makers 0-2, but doing fairly well in your win over Regen Retro. Currently the second most likely team to make playoffs, but of course, A West, very competitive, but also very uncertain with all the flex matches remaining. How are you guys feeling heading towards playoffs?
Well, I can't really speak for the rest of the team. I think the team is pretty confident. Myself, it's tricky because, like you said, there's so many games going on, and ultimately it comes down to whether or not we can actually perform in the games that sort of matter. I
Mhm.
mean, we 2-1 Forge the Winning Condition, we 2-1 Fox, we 2-0'd Regen Retro, but realistically, I mean, obviously we lost to two of those three teams, and I know that Retro beat Baby Makers, who
Mhm.
they've beaten us 4-1 total.
Mhm.
So, I mean, to your point, that sort of could go any way, really. I don't really feel safe right now, even though we are sort of massaging the definition. It's not because I'm not, confident in our team. It's just anything can happen.
Yeah, and so we're actually going to take a quick look at the standings. So keep in mind that while I'm showing all this simulation and stuff, it doesn't actually capture the standings in A West. So right now, you're currently third, although I think what benefits you is I believe, still have one match remaining with Running Wild, if I'm not mistaken.
That is true.
And that is coming up on Wednesday. And the simulator, no, I mean, no offense to Running Wild, but that the simulator has you guys as favored to pick up 3 points there, so that will help you catch
Correct.
up. Because then you'll both be with Fantasy Fights Foul at 9 matches, but you'll have 17 points. So from there, it's interesting because Forge the Winning Condition has played 5 games. Now, in the next
Yep.
couple of days, they're going to play 2 more. They're going to get up to 7. But they're a big question mark. Early in the season, I was really, really big on them. And since then, they've haven't been as dominant as I thought they were going to be. But we're taking a look at your remaining games. So you got a game remaining with Running Wild, a game remaining with Fox and his carries, another reverse fixture with Regen Retro and Forge the Winning Condition. Which of those matches worries you the most right now?
Boy, so it's interesting because Fox and his carries actually 2-1 Baby Makers.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was on Friday.
Yeah.
Which I mean, Baby Makers to me is the most dominant team. Now, to be fair, in that matchup, they were Baby Makers missing their what I would call carry.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, Fox has been doing a lot of role swapping in the last, second half of the games that they've played. And whenever you have a team that does that, the sort of uncertainty level goes up. I feel like the floor is lower, but also the ceiling could be higher because they might just hit the nail on the head on a certain team comp that nobody's expecting, and it meshes perfectly, and we just get destroyed. So honestly, they're sort of the ones I'm kind of looking at because I don't know really what to expect from them. And plus, I know they have really good players. So even though they haven't really showed up necessarily every match, I know they have good players. And so I would say probably Fox.
All right. Well, so with that, thank you for jumping in on this interview. Best of luck closing out the season, making playoffs. We certainly are going to talk to some more bubbly bubble teams a bit later, but you guys still have a way to go. And I got to tell you guys, A West, it has been a murderer's row. Do not sleep on these two teams down here, Regen Retro and Fox and his carries. They could
definitely
make the
not.
run. So
Thank you. Thanks, Smiley.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
All right. So now, that was A West. Taking a look real quick at the current playoff projection. Minion Miners actually moving up 2 seeds despite their loss to Baby Makers. They're 2 over Regen Retro, giving them a bit of an edge. That bumping down Fancy Flightless Foul and Forge the Winning Condition. But again, I fully expect this to change. And keep an eye on those last 2 teams kind of on the bubble with Running Wild, of course, eliminated as we mentioned. So moving on to A East. In A East now, Caffeinated Nights, this was actually a result reported last week. Caffeinated Nights did lose the party time on Monday of this last week. That was a big upset. That was Caffeinated Nights' first loss. It took them off the S line. Tiny Dancers getting the 2 over Wholesome Halfwits. Team Happy Cloud 2-0 over Roomba Rotations, and Regen Phoenix getting a very important, as we'll show in a second, 2-1 over Tricky Gooses. Moving over to the tier list, before we show you the tier list, I gotta show you this. Because I think it encapsulates why I've had so much trouble ranking these A East teams all season. Notice that Gilly Shark in first place currently has 16 points. Beef Boys and Party Time in 8th and 9th place respectively or ninth and 8th place respectively, I should say, are sitting at 12 points. That's only 4 points back. In fact, Tiny Dancers and Regen Phoenix, who are sitting at 6th and 7th, what you would think of as the bubble, currently are only one domination victory, sneeze button, behind Gilly Shark and Team Happy Cloud at that one position. Now, there's a disparity in the number of matches played. For example, while Tricky Gooses is currently sitting at 13, they have played 9 of their matches. They only have 1 match remaining, whereas you compare that to Tiny Dancers and Party Time, they both have 3 matches remaining. So more potential to pick up points. But, I mean, this is incredibly tight pairing. A East, it was the most competitive division last season. It has lived up to that reputation this season. And it's why I've just had such a hard time really placing these teams. I've spent probably more time with A East, I feel, than any other division. But with that, unfortunately, we need to say goodbye to the Careless Badgers. They did withdraw from the season. And actually, that is a big withdrawal because they were a safe bet. They were almost locked, but because they withdrew due to the team kind of needing to have some players go to a certain other league, that results in actually more certainty and less uncertainty, as we'll show in a bit. I'm going to keep, though, the A line as is. Roomba rotations, I do, just based on that loss to THC. I do need to move them down. Party Time has been really hard to place. They've kind of just been bouncing between these two. But for now, keeping them at B, coming off their win with Caffeinated Nights. I'm going to move Tricky Gooses down, and I'm going to keep Regen Phoenix, Tiny Dancers, and Roomba rotations here. And the reason for this placement is these top 7 teams are ranging from very safe to pretty safe. And you have the 2 bubble teams down here with Wholesome Halfwits at the bottom. By the way, I haven't actually focused on this, but my what to watch for this week. Huge matchup on that A line. Caffeinated Nights versus Gilly Shark. Baja's casting that Tuesday at 8:30. Definitely check that out. But let's take a look at the simulations, and then we will bring in a guest to do a brief interview. So still to this day, we do not yet have anything locked for A East. No one has clinched playoffs, and no one has been completely eliminated from playoffs. Now, to that end, we have seen a little bit of changing around in the potential seeding, and there's no more any improbable teams. In fact, it's interesting because now these 9 teams are all favored to make playoffs. Of course, only one of those teams is not going to make playoffs. And it's most likely either Beef Boys or Tricky Gooses. But it does mean that while this 90% looks safe, if you drop some games you shouldn't, that 90% is going to drop and drop fast. So, to that end, I'm going to bring in Arrow here. Arrow, if you're in, you want to just jump into the casting lobby 1, or I can try to drag you down. There we go. Hi, Arrow. How you doing?
Doing well, yourself?
Doing all right. So you guys, again, kind of massaging the definition of a bubble team by the traditional standards. You guys had been on the bubble much of the season, bouncing kind of between probable and improbable as the season went on. Of course, varying wildly because of how competitive A East has been. Kind of talk to me about what it's like playing in such a division with such parity, I will say.
I would say it's pretty tricky. You kind of have to dance around your different comps and work around, you know, the way that you play this game, and the scouting becomes incredibly important as you go through these. And so, it's been a challenge. Like we got absolutely just dumpstered by Gilly Shark, and then I think it was Beef Boys who beat Gilly Shark like week 1 or something like that, and we had no problems with them. So it's like it's really crazy, the disparity from week to week, trying to figure out how to make this work.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, I mean, you guys had a really important match with Tricky Gooses this week, getting the 2-1 victory. Now seeing where Tricky Gooses is on the bubble, you're effectively like there was one lifeboat in the probable bracket that you guys managed to get onto with that win. But now let's take a look at your remaining matches. So you guys have Roomba rotations and Team Happy Cloud come up. So no rest for the wicked here. How are you feeling about those matches?
They're not going to be pushovers by any means. Team Happy Cloud, we played against them last season. It did not go super well, if I remember correctly. Um, I think there's a chance we might have taken one game off of them, but it's been a while. But they're looking really strong. I mean, they're tied for first place, if
Mhm.
not at first place.
Tied, yeah,
So
at
it's
16 with Gilly. Although I think they have
yeah,
one more map played or one more match played.
Gotcha. But either way, they're still in a really good position, so that's going to be a tough one. It also is our last match.
Mhm.
Roomba rotations. I watched the THC and Roomba rotations this week, and Roomba's our next match on Tuesday. It's again not something that I'm just expecting to be a pushover, but between those two teams, I'm expecting that to be the closer fight.
Mhm.
So we'll put in some extra effort and do what we can to make sure that we come out of that victorious.
Yeah, and I mean, just let's take a look once again at the standings real quick. So Tricky Goose is currently at 13 points. You're at 13 points. Given that Tricky Goose has only one match remaining, and let me take a look at who that is, because I'm looking at them on the bubble right now more so than Beef Boys, just because of that. Let's see who's Tricky Goose got remaining. So they got Tiny Dancers left. I assume, however, that you don't really know who to root for in that game, given just how close A East is. Let me see if I can track it down. Sorry, I'm having difficulties actually pulling up the standings again. Yeah, so Tiny
Yeah, because
Dancers
they
actually
both
tied
have
with you as
13.
well.
Yeah, they both have 13, but Tiny Dancers doesn't have as many games.
Mhm.
We
Remind me
beat
your
Tiny
result with
Dancers.
Tiny. You did beat them, so
Yeah,
you
we
have
beat
both
them 2-1.
tiebreakers, so that's good.
Yeah, we beat them 2-1. We beat Tricky Gooses 2-1. So Party Time beat us
Mhm.
pretty handily too. Like we've had a unique season. We switched up our roles a little bit, and COVID has certainly reared its head for some of our members. So we've
Mhm.
had some challenges with practices and timing. So it's been a little bit difficult to be fully consistent.
Mhm.
But I think I think we have a good shot at getting into playoffs. Last season we
Yeah.
were at ninth, and so we just missed it. But this season I think we'll make it there.
Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, the one thing I will say about this division is that it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's us or anybody else. I think that the eighth seed is going to have just as likely of a chance, maybe not just as likely, but they have a chance to defeat the one seed, or the seven defeat the two seed in playoffs.
Mhm.
It's an uphill battle, of course, but I think they can do it.
Well, segues are weird. To that end, actually, I just put up the current simulator playoff projections. Uh, for A East, although things very much in flux. You guys currently moving up to a 7. However, interestingly enough, Tiny Dancers, I think because their remaining schedule is a bit more favorable, uh, jumping all the way from like ninth where they were to 4th uh, this week. And I'm kind of just surprised by that. I will say they benefited the most from Careless Badgers dropping out, since I think they lost that match 2-0, so it's effectively three bonus points. But do you know? I guess if you were looking at the bracket right now, and I assume you can, would you like that matchup, or do you maybe want to try to improve your seeding so you can get a better first round matchup?
Yeah, I mean, going against Caffeinated Knights, yeah, they did lose this week to Party Time. Party Time's a good
Mhm.
a good team. So, that doesn't surprise me. They're not necessarily the team that I would probably prefer to go against just about any other team. But we did beat them in one of those games. So, we had a 2-1 with Caffeinated. So,
Mhm.
if that's who we have to go against, then so be it.
Yeah.
We'll take that.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Arrow. Best of luck finishing out this season. I know you guys. It hurt me that you guys didn't make playoffs last season, because you guys made such a good run at the end there. So hopefully this time you break that and get in, and then we'll see what happens. I mean, I think A East is going to be the hardest bracket to predict, not counting A West. But in fairness, A West only has like 4 teams in it. But
Right.
It's gonna be
and 6 games left.
yeah. Well, and like
For each team.
every team has like 6 games left. Yeah. So who knows what's gonna do that? But anyway, so with that, thanks again, and we'll see you next time. All right. So just quickly, I'm doing interviews with some of the bubble teams as we look to wrap up this season. So there's a couple more lined up. Gonna go through the next couple divisions fairly quickly since we don't have any interviews. So here we go. B West. Better than Bots getting the 2-1 over Cosmos. Cosmos has been close to knocking off one of the top 4 teams. Hasn't been able to get it done yet. We'll see as we approach playoffs, though, if they can kind of get over that hump. Phoenix Rising Emerald getting a map off Soak Every Lane, which is respectable and definitely helps their playoff bid. Bronze 6, very dominant 2-0 over Roll 1. Lurk Patrol getting the forfeit over the Wind Train. And finally, an unreported result, and this is actually a very important result as far as the playoffs go. Spooky Ghost got the 2-0 over Arrogant Nephilim, and as a result, this really cleans up the playoff picture a bit. But before we get there, let's jump to those tier lists. I'm keeping Lurk Patrol up on the S line. Very excited for this Lurk Patrol Better Than Bots match on Thursday at 10 p.m. I would cast it, but I'm going to be playing a match myself. So someone please cast that. I will definitely watch the VOD. From there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move PRE up to the line with Spooky Ghosts. And I'm going to keep Arrogant down at D. While Arrogant still has a shot to make playoffs, and they're certainly higher up than Wind Train and War 1, their failure to get the win over Spooky Ghosts really cuts their chances down. Now moving to the simulations, top 4 still locked. While very, very, very safe, these teams haven't clinched yet, but you're looking at Cosmos, Soak Every Lane, Spooky Ghosts, very likely in. From there, Phoenix Rising Emerald in the probable spot. Arrogant Nephilim, their chances dropping to just about 18.5%. So time is definitely running out for them. But Lurk Patrol looking pretty good to clinch that 1 seed. We'll see what happens if they can close out the season. That Better Than Bots game, it's going to be very important for them to get the W. If they do, I think they come pretty close to clinching. Not a hard clinch, but still some clinching. I need a clinch emote. Someone probably has one. Current playoff projection simulation, nothing changed. All the seeds are still projected to stay the same, so nothing too interesting there. B Northeast, my division. First Scalding Sweat Cult versus Animaniacs. Important for seeding in the lower half of the bracket right now. Has been postponed. I heard it was due to wildfires, and if that's the case, certainly our thoughts go out with the members of those affected, and hopefully everything's okay and there's no loss of property. But with that, Die Gaming got the first match over Legal, but we managed to close out the series strong 2-1. Lubu in that critical match to decide playoff seeding. Lubu 2-1 over Regen Ghost. Definitely putting Regen Ghost on the back foot insofar as making playoffs. Boogans Forever getting the big 2-0 domination victory over Death and Delay. Are they starting to put it together? We'll see. Deckard's Erudition, that Towers of Doom game was close. It was really close, as we'll see in a second. But they do find the 2-0 victory over Strange Team Comp. Taking a look at what that does, I'm going to actually... So I never wanted to do this, because this is my show. I am biased. I am on a team. I really didn't want to do this, but when you look at the simulation odds, I have to move us up to S, and I'm not doing this as any kind of showboaty thing, but it's just statistically that's where we should be right now. I am going to keep Die Gaming on the A line, but Boogans Forever getting the win. They're going to move up. Death and Delay is going to move down. And Regen Ghost moving down with Animaniacs at the moment. And here's where I have this. Exactly. Bald guy bias. But it'll make sense when we get to the simulation. I wanted to avoid doing this, but now at this point, every team below us has at least 3 losses, and we only have 1. And that gap is significant enough in the simulation that if this were any other division, I would have done that. So taking a look at the simulations, we're rather favored to take the 1 seed. However, Death and Delay, Boogan, Deckard also locked for playoffs. Die Gaming and SSC are extremely close to clinching playoffs. From there, Lubu, Animaniacs, they're probable. Region goes down to about a 1 in 3 chance. They're going to have to win these games. And this is where Region goes, it has been hard to rate them this season because they took us down to the wire in both games. First game we absolutely should have lost. Second game came down to the wire after we were losing most of the game. They beat Death and Delay, but then they have struggled with, I think, teams that they should be able to beat. Gonna take some wins coming down the stretch for them to make playoffs, and they're gonna need Animaniacs and Lubu to lose, and possibly lose twice. So we'll see what happens. You have to respect the influence of the Cabal, exactly. Playoff projections. Interestingly, Boogan's Forever moving up all the way from 5 to 2 with their win over Death and Delay. Death and Delay, Die Gaming moving down to the 4-5. Deckard's Erudition moving up to the 3 line with the losses of Death and Delay and Die Gaming. Lubu, Animaniacs currently filling the 7 line. SSD still staying on that 6. No interview there. Was hoping to talk maybe to Lubu, but unfortunately no one available for them. Moving on to B Southeast, of course, 2 Calgary Throw has withdrawn from the season. HGC 2-0 over ZZZ. Deathweb 2-0 over Beyond Gaming. Phoenix Rising Diamond 2-0 over Bancho. None of those results really surprising or meaningful. But the biggest match is yet to come, and it is tonight. And if my team doesn't practice tonight, I will try to cast it. Last I checked, no one was casting it, and I really wanted to get casted. It is amateur opponents versus Probius. That has really big seeding implications. As right now, I think amateur opponents is the top 3 seed. My simulator thinks they're like a 5-6 seed. We'll see who's right. But to that end, nothing happened that made me change the tier list yet. Obviously, if Probius were to beat amateur opponents, we'd see a little swappy. Phoenix Rising Diamond, I know they want me to move them up to the A line, but I do think there is a skill gap, certainly between them and HGC. We'll see if I'm wrong come playoff time, as the 2 teams have already played. I am, however, making the what to watch for next week, although I think the best game of the next week is the one tonight, Probius and amateur opponents. But Deathweb versus Phoenix Rising Diamond, I just think, I'll be honest, I don't see Deathweb being challenged in this game. Deathweb has been extraordinarily dominant this season, but it's actually the most interesting game in B East 2 right now, keeping in mind that we have these 2 teams at the bottom. Last week of the season, we'll look at the Region Anomaly versus ZZZ game. As the winner will move on to playoffs, albeit as the 8th seed. As we mentioned, nothing's really changed since last time. 7 teams locked. It is between Region Anomaly and ZZZ for that last playoff spot. Winner will pretty much get that, so keep an eye there. Playoff projections, a little bit of a swap. The 4s and 5s, or the amateur opponents, Simulator now has them at the 5 line, Probius down at the 4, Phoenix Rising Diamond moving up to the 3, Beyond Gaming moving down to the 6. Otherwise, everything else holding pretty standard. I should note, by the way, the gaps between from like 2 to 5 are pretty small. Moving on to C West now. In C West, Resurgence of the Storm, a lot of games played this week. Resurgence of the Storm, 2-0 over AOL. Resurgence of the Storm also getting a 2-0 over Essence Gaming this week. Artemis taking down Bloodbath and Beyond 2-1, but Bloodbath and Beyond would go on to take out that frustration on Randy Newman of all teams. Big upset. Bloodbath and Beyond getting that 2-1. Randy Newman, a tough week as they also lost to the presumed number 1 seed at this point, Garrulus Gabberlunzi. So Going 4-2, but not winning either series. Fairly frustrating, one would imagine. Can't create acronyms, trying to make that last push for playoffs. We'll talk about that in a second. Getting the 2-0 over Team Maroon. TRSG 2-0 over Respect the Goose. And CCS grabbing that important 2-1 over Essence Gaming, keeping themselves safely in the playoffs at about a mid-seed level. So last time, these were our power rankings. And don't think I made too many changes. Although I will say, Randy Newman's now dropped a few games. They got to move down to B, even though they've been 2-1s. They got to move down. Bloodbath and Beyond moving up. They're on this line. I'm going to swap some orders here. And I am going to drop Essence Gaming down to the E line, which hurts to do. I had high expectations of them this season. But here is where I'm at with C West. What to watch for, it's going to be Can't Counterpick Stupid versus Team Rainbow Strike Go. That is Thursday at 11, so I will not be casting it because that is really late at night, but hopefully someone does. It'd be nice to watch that match. Two teams that have been around a while at this level. Moving on to the simulations, and then we'll get to a brief interview. Despite the losses, Randy Newman has clinched playoffs, as has Resurgence of the Storm. And you're looking at TRSG, CCS, Bloodbath and Beyond, and Artemis. Oops, this did not go to the next slide. And Artemis, all as safe bets. So that really leaves that last bubble seed kind of between three teams, although very much favored between CCS and AOL. And we are going to talk to a member of CCS. Can I get, I think, here we go, Arcane. I'm going to drag Arcane in. And actually, I think we might get a chance to talk to Animaniac soon. But let me talk to Arcane first. I may go back and talk to the captain of Animaniacs when I get the chance. But hi, Arcane, how are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing all right. So we are talking to Arcane, who is the captain for CCS4. Can't create acronyms, or acro as I like to call them. So you guys currently sitting at above coin flip odds, but only just to make playoffs, really competing with AOL for what looks to be that last spot. How are you guys feeling about your body of work this season, and especially of late?
I think we had a really rough start to the season. We were playing a lot of the higher end teams in our division, and we had just kind of come together as a bunch of free agents that got together under the CCS name. Weren't really all that comfortable playing with each other up to that point, but I think we've kind of turned it around for ourselves. We put in a lot of hours, a lot of effort. I think our recent 2-0s against Annie Oak League and Team Maroon have kind of shown that we are a threat in the division, something to be reckoned with, not to be slept on. We did have very close games against Team Rainbow Strike Go earlier in the week, and we nearly took a map off Randy Newman. So I'm feeling pretty good about our odds going into playoffs, as long as we keep playing like we have been recently.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, so that win over Annie Oak League is going to be very, very important come playoff time, because it does mean that if the two of you are tied, you would get the head-to-head advantage there, and thus take playoff over them. But let's look at the remaining schedule. Let's assume for now, because Artemis, while they're below you, you only have 2 matches remaining. They have 5? According
4, yeah.
4. Oh, yeah, 4 matches remaining. So it's a lot. So they'll probably pick those points up. But let's take a look at your remaining schedule. So you got, and you've knocked out your flex matches, so you're down to Resurgence of the Storm and Respect the Goose. I imagine that Resurgence of the Storm, hang on, one sec.
No worries.
Trying to get the next interview lined up, as we are going to backtrack a little bit. The Resurgence of the Storm, obviously one of the top teams right now, very much going to be a hard victory. What do you think it's going to take to just get even a map in that game?
Resurgence of the Storm definitely looking very strong. I think we've seen them, if I remember correctly, we've seen Respect the Goose got a game off them, CCS got a game, and
yes, Respect the
Bloodbath and
Goose
Beyond?
you're correct on both of those, and Bloodbath and Beyond got a game. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've been kind of watching those closely to try and see what those mistakes have been. I think Resurgence of the Storm, I think a lot of their strength lies in their off lane. They have a really strong off laner, C2D2, I believe,
Mhm.
is holding down the off lane for them. I think we have a very equally strong off lane player with Bimeruho, also known as Derivative. So I think that matchup is going to be really important in our matches together this week. But I also think that our four-man has kind of come together a
Mhm.
lot in terms of coordination, in terms of macro play, in terms of team fight calling. So I wouldn't be surprised to see us winning some team fights in that game too.
Yeah.
A lot of it comes down to, I think one of the things we've struggled with a lot this season is figuring out what to do when we have advantages on the map. We don't
Mhm.
always make the best decisions on when to siege or when to step back and soak safely or however it goes.
Yeah.
So I think if we can start to come out to an early lead in those games, that gives us a really good shot at this point
All right. And,
to take them.
and just quickly taking a look at the remaining schedule for Annie Oak League. So they have actually Respect the Goose as well, and Team Rainbow Strike Go. So it's going to be really important for you guys to do as well or better than Annie Oak League in that Respect the Goose game. So with that, I'll go ahead just because I want to keep this moving. I will let you get in any kind of last word, and then I'm going to actually backtrack a bit and talk to Animaniacs from B Northeast.
All right. Well, thanks so much for interviewing me. Shout outs to Valk's mom, and I'll see you all in our matches this week.
Shout out to Vaxpom indeed. Currently, CCS4 is projected to make playoffs as the 8th seed. Be a very tough out, but certainly making playoffs, always helping it build towards the next thing. But now, we're going to backtrack a bit. I am going to bring in, if I can have, yep, I'm going to bring in Sir Watson. Hi, Sir Watson. How are you doing?
But maybe we try again at like 8:15 if you guys are down to play.
Oh, sorry. Are you in a conversation with someone else?
Oh, one second. I'll call you back, bud.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Hi there. I caught you off guard. So we actually had already passed B Northeast, but I'll go ahead and head back to it. You are with Animaniacs, right? I'm not. My brain's not breaking. Right? Yes. Sorry. Apologies for that. So, taking a look at the B Northeast simulation odds right now, you guys are sitting at about 78% chance to make playoffs. Pretty good.
Let's go.
But I think the rest of the season, you know, let's look at how it shapes up. First, let's take a look at the B Northeast standings, and right now you guys sitting at 7 points, but you have 3 matches remaining as that game with SSC was delayed.
Right.
And hopefully everything is okay on that end. But from there, just taking a look at your remaining schedule, and I'm going to compare that to that of Lubu and Regen Ghost. So I know both Yubu and Regen Ghost are playing this team. What is it? They have like this stupid fish. I can't remember. But you know, you guys have that matchup coming. But you also have, and let me make sure I have the right screen up. You also have a match remaining versus Die Gaming.
Oh yeah.
As well as Scalding Sweat Called. Die Gaming had been on a hot streak after kind of starting a bit soft. You guys have a pretty tough schedule remaining. How many maps do you think you need to take to be safe in this series?
Well, yeah. So it's interesting. In terms of the bare minimum we'd need to make playoffs, that's really going to depend on
Lubu and Regen Ghost, especially.
The old thing about if you're being chased by a bear, or you and your friend are being chased by a bear, and it's like how fast you have to run. Yeah. Well, the answer is just like faster than your friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so looking down the line, Regen Ghost has Boogans Forever and Strange Team Comp remaining.
Right.
If you asked me how many points they get from that, I would say 3, although maybe 4.
Yeah.
They've pulled out sets before.
Yeah, sure.
Legal, they have, or Blue Boo, tough schedule. Legal, Boogans Forever left. I think if they get a point from that, they would be pretty happy. And that's not to downplay them. And maybe I'm setting myself up for a really bad Thursday night by saying that, giving them bulletin board material. But from there, if I just do some caster math, so that would put Lubu potentially at, let's call it 9 points. Put Regen Ghost potentially also at 9 points. You guys at 7. You got it. So that means not looking too deep into tiebreakers. You need to at least get to 9 points. You got to pick up 2
Yeah.
maps against SSC, Die Gaming, and Legal. Do you think you can do it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, who are those maps coming against? My team needs bulletin board material.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, I feel pretty bullish about us not just making playoffs, but making a nice little run up the rankings. I really think we're in a situation where, so we lost our tank, and it was a total just for he had work, personal issues or what have you. So he had to drop out, and he dropped out, day of a match, and so we lost our we got dominated by the worst team in the division, and they're not a bad team, of course, but they're the worst record in the division, and that really just set us back. And prior to that, we had been having some issues. Just teams were banning well against us, frankly. So we weren't able to get the comps we wanted to see, and so there's been continuity issues. But now we've got a new tank, we've got our continuity issues sorted out. I think we're in a pretty good spot, and we've done some spicy things in scrims trying to onboard the new tank. So we're feeling pretty good. So yes, I think you're right. I think we're going to need about 2-3 points to ensure playoffs, but we're really looking for 5 to well, I guess 9 is the most, right? We're really looking to mess these teams up because you don't just make playoffs to make playoffs. You know what I mean? Like we want to. Once you hit in playoffs, the whole regular season didn't matter. We're looking to win the chip.
I think back to the movie Taken, where after Liam Neeson gives his famous speech, the guy on the other side of the line says, "Good luck."
Yeah,
I think that's where I'll end this. So see you in a couple weeks. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this interview and get back on track. Thank you, Watson, for coming in.
Thank you, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah. All right. So now, back on track, heading to C East. C East results. House of Shez 2-0 over Heavy Slaps. Phoenix Rising Citrine, big 2-0 over Duratan's Couch. And a bit of an upset, Limit Break, who's really been rising of late. Stock is definitely high for them. 2-1 victory over Nexus Cats. And it feels like getting first place in C East has almost become a curse. Let's take a look at what that does. So we're kind of just going to swap some rankings here. Nexus Cats moving down to this line. Otherwise, I don't really have many moves to make. I think that this is a pretty good ranking. Big matchup next week. That's going to be on Wednesday. Zul'jin Distillery versus Bunker Funtime. Zul'jin Distillery has started to get back together after a little bit of a lull in the mid-season. And they're probably going to be the what to watch for the final week as well when they go to face Nexus Cats. So big games for Zul'jin Distillery to try to improve their seed. Right now, looking like they may be in the 6 seed range. But that said, top 6 are now locked in Division C. Nexus Cats, House of Shez, Zul'jin Distillery, Bunker Funtime, Limit Break, and Phoenix Rising Citrine, all locked for playoffs. You got Duratan's Couch looking pretty safe, and Protectors of Ire, Heavy Slaps, looking like they're going to fight for that last spot. And we are going to bring in the captain of Protectors of Ire now. I grabbed the right person, Protectors of Ire captain, right?
Yeah.
Good. I had this all set up on my server, and then the voice wasn't working, so we kind of had to change it up a little bit. But thank you for coming in. So you guys, sister team to amateur opponent, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and you guys, it's I will say this, C East has been an extremely tough division. You guys managing to take some maps here and there, of course, getting wins over your math teachers, although they've since withdrawn. But now, sitting fairly pretty to make playoffs. How are you guys feeling?
Feeling pretty good. I think at the beginning of our season, we felt like maybe we were a little misplaced. We have a bunch of guys from D. But like a lot of teams from D came up to C, so I feel like we thought we were gonna have a really big struggle. And like I'm not saying we didn't have a struggle, but we felt after a lot of our games that we really are where we belong, because even though like the records don't necessarily show this, but we had a ton of like super close games, and like there's a few things that stand out. Like we took the first game off of Nexus Cats they ever lost, and like despite that match being a 2-1, like the ones they won were like close, but our domination or our map we took off them was like just a domination of the map. Like it was
Right.
like so like and there's a handful of things like Zoltan Distillery was sitting really high early on, and both of our games with them, despite them coming out with the domination, they were both like super close. We like
Mhm.
threw in the boss pit and stuff like that. So it looks like the numbers kind of don't tell our story really well,
Right.
but like, not many of our games got cast that like we feel like really said what we did. So
Yeah, and it can be difficult. I do try to watch as many games as I can a week, but admittedly, casting I'm partly responsible for this, as I've been so busy I haven't casted nearly as much as I used to this season. But with that, I mean, just let's take a look at the math. Both you and Heavy Slaps tied for 8th place at 13 points. You have 2 matches remaining. They have 1, but you have a common opponent. Both of you having to play Phoenix Rising Citrine down the stretch, who has been hot, coming off a win over Nexus Cats last week. This week, they got the win over... who did they get the win over? I am blanking. It was on my slides. Anyway, what is your expectation for the next 2 games that you guys have? You have to play Phoenix Rising Citrine and Limit Break, both teams looking very hot right now. Do you think you can get any points in those matches?
I do think we could pull some points out of these guys. I've watched a bunch of their games, and we think that we've scouted them pretty well. So hopefully we get something. Again, like you said, Heavy Slabs has the same opponent we have. So as long as we do better than them in our match against them, actually,
Or just the same as them, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Then, but even if we get a domination out of one of these 2 teams, and Duratan's Couch is looking at Limit Break next week or this week. So if Duratan's Couch doesn't take any games off Limit Break and we get a domination on either, we don't even need a domination. If we take 2 games out of those 2 matches, we're now 7th seed. So
Right. Yeah, so right now, currently, my simulator having you expected, or my playoff projection currently has you expected to be around, to be the 8th seed. So this might be a preview this week, going against Phoenix Rising Citrine here. Maybe a chance to learn something. Are you maybe incentivized to hide any strats that you might try to break out against them in playoffs if you do face them?
that's kind of tough because really we need to bring our A game just to make sure we clinch the playoff. So like hiding strats is a great idea, but like we can't afford if if Heavy Slaps pulls a game off of them and we don't because we were trying to hide something for the playoffs, then we had nothing to hide
Right.
because we didn't make it to the playoffs. So
Right, understandable. Well, thank you for coming in. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but best of luck, of course, closing out this season and making the playoffs in these last 2 weeks. Go get it.
all right, thank you.
All right, and with that, now we're going to move down to the D division. We're going to take a look at D West. It has been one of the most chaotic divisions consistently throughout this season. We're going to take a quick look at the matches that have occurred. Yavapai dropping 0-2 to Can't Connect Stuns. Also getting the 2-0 over 9 Avatar. A bit of an easier week for them. 9 Avatar did, however, take a map over Puns Upon a Time. Puns Upon a Time getting the 2-1. Puns Upon a Time did lose to Cool Cats and Kittens 2-1, however. So a little bit of a wash for them this week. Nerf the Smurfs coming on strong late in the season, trying to put themselves in position to make playoffs. And they've done a good job of it this week, getting the 2-0 over We're Scaling. They did drop to Clouded Minds, but Clouded Minds is just really starting to get it together as a team. They're the favorite to be the 1 seed. Knights Who Stay Bronze 2-0 over Lightly Salted. And TRSG Knights, watch out, surging up the pack here. And we're going to talk about that surge. TRSG Knights coming on very strong at the end of the season. They have gone from being a long shot to make playoffs to now probable. And we're going to talk just about that. But first, everyone wants to talk tier lists. Let's go ahead and do what we need to do. Do that voodoo that I do. So I am going to drop both We're Scaling and Lightly Salted down to D. I'm going to move Nerf the Smurfs up, as well as TRSG Knights. Puns Upon a Time They got to drop down to C, unfortunately, with that loss. And yes, it was close. But I expected them to 209 Avatar, and they didn't. So that kind of biases me down a bit. What to watch for next week? We got Regen Divine versus Cool Cats and Kittens. That one Tuesday, 10 Eastern. Should be a great match. Regen Divine has been, in my mind, the most improved team in D West. Looking at how they looked week 1, they looked kind of rough. They have really started to just play together as a team whenever I've been able to watch them, which isn't as much as I would like, admittedly. But for now, taking a look at the simulations, top 5 have clinched. Clouded Minds, Puns Upon a Time, Can't Connect Stuns, Regen Divine, Cool Cats and Kittens, they are all clinched. Knights of State Bronze are basically clinched. There's like a really, really weird path where they could fail to make playoffs. But it's not going to happen. So they're probably going to clinch. So now we're talking about 2 teams left, Nerf the Smurfs and TRSG Knights. And who better to talk to about this than the captain of TRSG Knights? Hi, Howlin' Knight. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I was listening to the stream, and so I had to mute that. It's
No
a
worries.
little behind you.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, I mean, congrats on this surge late in the season to start putting yourselves in position not only make playoffs but potentially improve your seeding as well.
Yeah, it's been hard fought for, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so right now you're sitting at 11 points. That puts you, I mean, there is a pretty big gap between 6 and 7, admittedly. You do also, I should note, Cool Cats and Kittens has 4 matches remaining. You only have 2, so that gap may get a bit bigger. But let's go ahead and just take a look at the schedule, at the results. And I should note the sorting on the NGS page, not great. But you guys did start a little bit rough. 2-0 loss to Regen Divine. From there,
Those were really close games.
Yeah,
though.
They were really, really close games, I should note. Got a map off Cool Cats and Kittens. You were there, but then it just felt like, you know, you really ended up playing like all the top teams early. Clouded Minds, Knights that stay bronze. Since October has come around, though, much like a clutch Major League Baseball pitcher, it seems things have come up pretty well for you guys. Currently, sitting in October at 7 wins, 2 losses. 2 losses coming to Nerf the Smurfs, but getting wins over We're Scaling, 9 Avatara, and Yavapai. What do you think has changed? Do you think it is just that the schedule has gotten easier, or do you think you've also grown more together as a team?
It's been mostly us growing as a team, and we actually have ourselves a coach currently. Who we were trying to get as an on-roster sub, but apparently I did that way too late. Poor captaining. It's really helped us.
Yeah.
Having that outside viewpoint.
Yeah. So from there, looking at your remaining matches, you have a match remaining against Can't Connect Stuns, which is obviously going to be a very tough opponent, as well as Lightly Salted, one of the teams you're competing with the playoff bid for. I want you to tell me now, how many points do you think you get in those 2 matches?
I'm not really sure. I think Can't Connect Stuns is going to give us definitely a run for our money. I think that's tomorrow, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
We're hoping for the 2-1 at worst.
2-1 win or 2-1 loss?
2-1. But
okay.
Realistically, like, I mean, we've played against them in ranked before. We happened against their team by accident, and that was a lot of fun. So I'm mostly looking forward to it.
All right. Well, with that, I mean, you know, we're taking a look now. Let's go ahead and you can see this with me. The projected bracket currently has you guys sitting at 7th, potentially looking at a match with Clouded Minds as your match that you would first play in the playoffs. You said that you said your match with Regen Divine was close. Would you be happy if the seeding somehow changed, whether that's Regen Divine moving up to 2 or you moving up to 6, whatever, such that you play Regen Divine? I guess let me phrase that another way. Between CCS, Clouded Minds, and Regen Divine, because presumably you're probably going to go against one of the top 3 seeds.
Right.
Which one would you most want to play in first round?
Either Clouded Mines or Regen would be fun. It'd be nice
Mhm.
to have a rematch.
All right. Well, with that, best of luck closing out this season and getting to playoffs. This was your team's first season in NGS, obviously sister team of Team Rainbow Straight Go, but I actually do know a couple of the players who are on your team, so best of luck.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. And with that, we will wrap up. We only have one more interview left, folks. It's coming up soon. Stay tuned. But before we get to there, let's talk about D East. So D East results. Rise and Grind getting the getting actually upset here by I Must Feed. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to do any crazy effects. I'm just a bit misaligned. Rise and Grind getting upset here by IMF. 1-2. Hot Potato still got the win over the Proteus Strikes Back, but had a bit of trouble doing it. 2-1 in that series. Bad Matchmaker 2 over one more fight, and Team Banshee continuing to struggle. We actually talked about this one on the last show since it was a bit late on Tuesday, but did drop 1-2 to Phoenix Rising Onyx. Now, despite that loss, when you take a look at it, Phoenix Rising Onyx still down at the D tier, and I actually need to move them down to E tier. Now, that may seem unfair. They won, and I'm moving them down. However, when we look at the playoff simulation, we'll see that they've dropped now to a 2.22 chance to make playoffs. And so despite the win, and the fact that I think they're improving, I think they'll be better next season, as it relates to this season, they are beyond astronomical. Well, not astronomical, but they are beyond improbable to make playoffs. They would require some really weird chicanery for them to make playoffs. That said, Team Banshee does move down to D. Other than that, I swap I Must Feed and Rise and Grind. They're actually both going to stay on this tier. And I actually thought, the Proteus Strikes Back doing a good job here. And so this is currently what I'm looking at as far as the rankings go. Thought about moving Rise and Grind down, but for now keeping them on the B line because I think this group is competitive, and I do think one more fight maybe should still be outside of this group. Taking a look at simulations, Hot Potato, despite only the 2-1 victory, still favored to take the 1 seed over Frankfurters, even though they did, and this is worth repeating, they did lose to Frankfurters. Frankfurters did get that win. From there, 6 teams locked. Proteus Strikes Back, Hot Potato, Rise and Grind, Frankfurters, Bad Matchmaker, and I Must Feed. Team Banshee in one more fight, just on the cusp of being locked, but not quite there yet. Taking a look at the playoff projection, I Must Feed moving up to the 5 seed, dropping Bad Matchmaker down to the 6. And one more fight, and Team Banshee switching places, but still safely in the playoffs. Keep an eye on next week. Frankfurters versus Proteus Strikes Back. It's a chance for Proteus Strikes Back to move back up to that A line where they started the season, by the way. But move down after what I thought was a very underwhelming start. Seemed to be getting it together, playing a lot better these days. Finally, moving on to Division E, and this will be our last interview. Division E, we got FC Hong Kong 2-0 over Ice Crown Citadel Knights. That's an important result, as we'll talk about in a second. While expected, is important. TBD 2-0 over Phoenix Rising Amethyst. Devil's Rejects 2-0 over Fredonia. Fredonia continuing to struggle to find wins late in the season. Bull Moose Party 2-0 over FF and the Pancakes, and that has resulted in a seismic shift in the playoff projections, and we will take a look at that. So first and foremost, need to check my notes here because it has been a while since I've looked at this. Nobody changing on this top line or even on this B line, but Fredonia or Ice Crown Citadel Knights are moving down. Poseidon moving down. Bull Moose Party moving over here. The reason for this, they beat FFTP, and Fredonia feels like they've been in free fall rather than Fredonia. Unfortunately, we have our next elimination. Phoenix Rising Amethyst is formally eliminated from playoffs. They were more or less out of it before, but now officially eliminated. FC Hong Kong Core Bouncers have clinched. While you see 100 percentage points here, a lot of teams have not clinched yet, although very close. Illa Dancing Queens, FFTP, Baddest Dudes, Fredonia, despite their struggles of late, still a very safe bet. Devil's Rejects, also a very safe bet. But shooting way up from improbable to probable, it is Bull Moose Party off that 2-0 victory over FFTP. Ice Crown Citadel Knights dropping to improbable as a result. Poseidon, more or less out of it, so it's really kind of between these two teams, and there is such an inside track now for Bull Moose Party. And to that end, we're going to speak to the captain of Bull Moose Party. Let me pull them in. Hi, Toast Monster. No. Toast Monster. Hi there. How are you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Doing all right. So you guys getting really the upset of the week in E last week, beating FFTP in a domination victory, taking you guys from, they probably won't make playoffs to, these guys are probably going to playoffs. What do you attribute that victory to?
Honestly, we're probably about as shocked as you were, but I mean, this is our first season with NGS, and we're a new team, and the first two games right out of the gate was Illa Dancing Queens and FC Hong Kong, and as you know, probably the two best teams right now in the division besides Core Bouncers.
I put Core Bouncers up there right now. I think Core Bouncers likely get one seed, but certainly two of the best three.
Yeah, and just those two first teams right off the bat, we just kind of looked at ourselves and went, "Oh man, what did we get ourselves into?" And we just made changes here and there, tightening up what our roles are, who we play, and just our macro game. I think is pretty strong overall. So
yeah, I noticed at the start of October, it felt like something changed. I mean, yeah, you did get the 2-0 victory over PRA in September, but given their current status, that is not, that's not particularly overwhelming. You started getting maps. They weren't wins, but they were maps over TBD, TDR, and Fredonia, and I kind of started paying attention. But obviously, now that finally culminated in that victory and a domination victory nonetheless. So, you talked about your growth as a team. Do you feel like you've been playing better, or do you think maybe the schedule has contributed to that?
I think it's more just we've been growing more as a team. I mean, like I said, our schedule started off terrible for us as a brand new team, but we're starting to get used to the ways work in competitive HOTS, which is very different from what we have to deal with in Storm League, as you know, at our level. And it's just, I think it's just our growth as a team, and we're finally understanding what we have to do to gain victory. And there are a couple instances where we've had some technical issues with like TDR. We had to finish one game with the AI, which we almost came back and won with, but it's just all up in the air in those games.
Yeah. So I want to talk about your remaining schedule, and obviously, in light of what I just discussed with the playoff bubble being what it is, I imagine that you're really, really focused now on that match with Ice Crown Citadel Knights. Have you started doing any scouting for that match yet?
Definitely. We've basically for the past, I think, since we played the Devil's Rejects, we've had that game circled, and we said, okay, well, it's gonna be between us and Ice Crown Citadel Knights, and it's just like, I'm sure it's gonna come down to this one match, this one game that we have to play, and we just have to be able to pull it out. And so, I think that's what we're looking forward to the most.
Well, so I think your schedule shapes up nicely down the stretch. Obviously, that big game with Ice Crown Citadel Knights. You have Poseidon as well, which I think is a very winnable set. You have 2 matches remaining and a 4-point lead over Ice Crown Citadel Knights, but they have 4 matches remaining. So they have definitely an opportunity to gain more points. taking a look, though, at their schedule, it is not as forgiving. Obviously, you're looking at that Core Bouncers game that they are playing here in a couple days. That game is going to presumably be Core Bouncers. If ICK is able to get a win, that certainly would help them out. Obviously, that big game with you guys, but then they still have to play TDR and Fredonia. So now I have to ask you, how big a fan are you of TDR and Fredonia these days?
I'm probably one of the biggest fans of TDR right now and Fredonia. TDR, we've actually kind of played with them, and Satan Saves, the captain of TDR. We actually went into the fall brawl with him, and so we've played a bunch of games with TDR. So I mean, big fans, definitely big fans of TDR.
All right. Well, with that, thank you for this interview, and we are gonna bring it home, everyone. Now that was just taking one last look at the current playoff projections. As we take a look at the E playoff projections here, and then we will get into your top 5 plays of the abbreviated week. Admittedly, I did a show on Tuesday, and so there were some great plays on Monday that were in the last top 5. So we're about to do the top 5 right after this. But first, current playoff projections in E. Bull Moose Party now the favorite to get that 8 seed, where they will face Core Bouncers. That'll be a tough opponent. Core Bouncers, not prohibitively the favorite to be the 1 seed, but very much favored. From there, Devil's Rejects, FFTP, they're switching places, but it doesn't really change the bracket. FC Hong Kong and Illa Dancing Queens trading places as well. But now it is time for your top 5 plays of week 7. Oops. And here we go. So at number 5, we have everyone press their R buttons. Go ahead and jump into this. I need to... my scene that I used to use for this no longer works. So we're going to do...
Be coming out. They can't get whittled down by all that poking consistently coming out. There's Falstad with a massive wind tunnel into the corner. Samuro with the Blade Storm into there. Divine Maul comes out as well. Tyrande, Thrall, and the Zagara go down. Samuro lives with a be coming out.
All right. That was your number 5 play. Everyone press all the R buttons. Great Falstad post 20 Mighty Gust. You got the Zagara Maw to trap them in. You got the Blade Storm, the Warlord's Challenge, as well as the Bulwark of Light, helping Tiny Dancers secure that game against Wholesome Mafwits, casted by Bahamut. Next, Deckard's Erudition versus Strange Team Comp. I talked about this one earlier. This was where I mentioned that their game with Strange Team Comp got pretty close. Here we go.
At least one of these, or it is GG. Let's see what they're able to do here. Falstad is in, and that is 2 Sappers connecting for the game. What a play there from Pina to hit that.
All right, and that was your number 4 play. Deckard's Erudition using the Stuttgart Flame Swipe and the Avalanche to ensure those 2 Sappers got in. Both had to get in to end the game, and they did. Deckard's Erudition surviving with 1 health left on their core against Strange Team Comp in game number 1 of that series, casted by Kotip. Number 3, Kira finds the Death Note. Here we go.
Just letting them have this objective if I were playing on the side of Bronze 6 right now. This is going to be the Garrosh falling once again. It really feels like just whenever he steps up, he's just getting absolutely shredded. I guess that's just the power of having a Tychus on your team. And Genji in the back line just chasing down the members. We are going to see that Raynor fall as well, and Li Ming now getting focused by Genji. Down she goes, 4 members down on Roll 1 Esports. This is probably going to be a core call coming out now. So who needs level 20s when you can...
All right, and that was our number 3 highlight. Kira finds the Death Note. Bronze 6 versus Roll 1 Esports, casted by Jazzaline. Our next massive boss fight. It's a great highlight coming up between Death and Delay and Boogan's Forever, casted by one of our new casters, Xantharium. I hope I'm saying Xantharium. I am now pronouncing that correctly, I believe. Here we go.
although both can win if played properly. Now, I'm sorry, folks, but it looks like I almost missed this massive boss fight going on down here, and it looks like Death and Delay are getting feared off the point. Are they going to be able to hold it? They're barely getting on in time, but Greymane goes down for Bugans. However, everybody is low on the side of Death and Delay. Raynor is fighting his way through, and he's barely getting healed by Uther, but not quite enough. Can Lunara secure kills? Diablo manages to shove them off the point. Lunara is trying to kill Gul'dan. It looks like she might be able to do it. Ana barely gets the heal in time, but Diablo goes down just as that happens. And that means that Bugans successfully...
All right, and that was Bugans Forever getting a much-needed boss win, helped them get to the upset victory over Death and Delay, and now put them competitive for that 2 seed in B Northeast. And finally, our number 1 play, and it's pretty quick. This is not casted. This is a point of view from Paper Tanks, and this is Baby Makers versus Minion Miners. Don't blink. It will be over quickly.
I'm Aring now.
Pushed him in.
Look at that.
Play a second.
I have to go for it.
Yep. GG.
On choke here. I'm Aring now.
Pushed him in.
Look at that.
And I like to call that highlight push them in. And that was Baby Makers en route to their 2-0 victory over Minion Miners. Absolutely killer combo. The Graviton paired with all that AoE damage, the Stukov silence. Really, really well done. Well, with that, folks, that brings us to the end of this week. Next week, there's going to be 2 episodes of 323. One on Sunday and one on Monday. We're going to deep dive into each division and look at all the remaining matches and how the playoffs can shake out. And if you want to know, hey, how can my team get the 2 seed? We'll come by next week and we'll look at the scenarios and how your team can get there. But in the meantime, this has been 323 Weekly. Thank you all so much for watching. I have always enjoyed doing this. I'm glad we had